Okay, so in there, that is your grandpa on your dad's side?
No, mother's side.
Mother's side, okay.
Grandpa Tuxer.
Okay.
Dominic Tuxer.
Okay.
Duke Dominic in German. Duke Dominic. You say that
backwards?
Backwards,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I say that, yeah.
Okay.
Now, the Italians use Dominic a lot too, you know.
Yeah, I never heard it with German before. That was the first time when I was reading through your...
Well, I had 3 or 4 cousins were Dominics too. They're all gone now.
So what year was this taken?
That was 51. The one on the left is 52, and the one over here was when I went in, that was in 51. That one over there was in 1925 when Ma and Pa, Maggie's folks.
Leo, when you served, were you in the Army?
Pardon?
Were you in the Army?
I was an amphibious engineer in the Army, yeah.
Okay.
I had enlisted in the Air Force, but my cousin that went with me couldn't make the IQ. So he taught me into going into the Army. After I was in the Army, his dad got him out on a hardship case, and I was in the Army for 3 years. Of course, I'd had 4 years with the Air Force.
What year was this one here taken?
Oh, gosh, I've seen about 3, 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Yeah, make it 4. I look that way now yet, so.
Yeah, you still do.
Okay, and then we probably need to get out of your way, or can you get the other one? Okay.
Can you get it?
And then this one is Maggie. And Maggie, are these your
Grandma,
mother's?
Grandpa.
Your mother's?
No, my
Or
dad.
Your dad's?
My
Yeah.
dad's, yeah. And actually, Leo, my grandma and his grandpa are related.
We're related.
So that
She called him
she called it fiddle.
Fiddle, which means uncle. But my mother called,
One of this, yeah, I don't know if that's too close or that's our 40th wedding anniversary in our family then.
Will you tell me who's in the family picture?
Okay. Do you want to start with
Go,
that?
yeah, go left to right.
Okay. Leo Jr., Leo J, J-A-Y.
that's the same one.
Yeah. And then first Leo, and then Gary,
Okay.
and then Dolores, and then me, and then Brenda.
Do Dolores and Brenda have married names?
Yeah, Dolores Kleinian,
How do you spell that?
Kleineanjan.
Okay.
And Brenda kept her name, but she's married to a muffin buyer.
Oh, but she kept her.
Yeah, she kept her name.
Kleinian means little John in Dutch.
Really?
Now
Yeah.
I want to show you something.
Klein means small in German, you know. Or ga, we say, we always use an A instead of a I-N in the end like a lot of them do. In our dialect, what do you call it? Our dialect, huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's when we got married in June 1956 at Little Flowers.
You can see why.
You were married at this church here.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have time today. We should go by over there and do some filming over there because that's been you guys attended when you were kids. You were married. We definitely need to do some filming over there.
And then that's, I don't know if I got fingers in it, but that's the family picture we took when Brenda got married. That was all the kids and the grandkids on there.
When you guys got married, what was your wedding like?
What was our wedding like? Oh,
We'll never forget it.
we'll never forget it. We had the nicest wedding. We danced all day, all afternoon, and then after we went down to the church basement again and had supper. And then after supper, we went back and had a wedding dance. And then I think we left at midnight. That was enough dancing for one day.
How did you?
You just, and everybody had such a good time, you know. it's just, the German weddings, I guess they were just that way, you know. You just everybody had a good time.
What I felt so good about was the Canadians coming down.
Because his uncles all come down from Canada. Yeah, I had never met any of them. And then we lived...
And great Uncle Pete even.
Yeah, and we lived west of Barton. It was just a little house, you know, not modern.
Called it a little dump, what it was, Mother.
It was just a little house, but we were happy there. We had our kids. All 4 kids were born there. But anyway, I had bought my sister moved to someplace, and so we bought her furniture. So we had, you know, had it ready to move in when we got back. And when we got back, well, some of the Canadians had stayed over there because we had 2 beds over there that had come down from Canada, and they spent the night over there. So that was nice.
So how did you 2 meet?
I think in the bowling alley, wasn't it?
Yes, I was bowling, and Leah was in the bar, and then, I don't know, I was engaged to somebody else, but anyway, I come over to the bar, and Leah was, I think I walked over to the jukebox, and then he come over too, you know, and wanted to know what kind of music I liked, or whatever, and then later on, of course, after we were done bowling, we went back over to the bar again, and I had this girlfriend with me, you know, so then he said something about, can I take you home, or something like that, and I said, well, I'm not going to beg you, I said.
No, but I sure as hell want to go with you.
So anyway, that's how that started, and then, oh man, I mean, I had to break up, and that wasn't fun, but.
So the person that you were engaged to before, was it somebody that you had just been seeing before, or was it?
Yeah, I went with him for a long time.
Okay.
And was engaged. This here.
What's Grandma's?
That
Yeah.
was Leo's grandmother's.
The one with the picture we took in there was hers.
And those here.
Oh my goodness. So did those come over from Russia, or were those something that she acquired?
That I don't even know.
That we don't know. But that punch bowl belonged to his grandmother. So that I was lucky enough to get it. I mean, you know.
But I imagine they built that stuff, made that stuff over in Europe at that time already.
But you can tell that it's old because it's got that kind of purplish tint to it. And those candle holders are too.
Yeah.
They were old too. And his mother had them over there, and she had kind of like a bay window, and that's where she always had them. And they were sitting there after his brother, you know, had left the place there. I went over and got them.
So something like this punch bowl, I don't want to would it be used for when company would come over visiting, or was it more like weddings?
I only saw that punch bowl used one time, and I don't remember. I think Mom made some kind of drinking punch out of it, maybe with alcohol. I don't know.
It's a possibility. We've never used it.
No, we never.
I have thought about it.
Has she shown you the other hutch out there?
Yeah, we're gonna go get some of that.
See, that was my mother's.
That was his mother's too, you know. So we've got, and a lot of these antique, you know, green dishes here and stuff. I don't know if you can take them or not. But anyway, these, would you rather have the glass open or? Oh, that's fine. Because those belong to his mother. Most of them belong to his mother.
Well, except that Dakota stuff there.
Yeah, that we bought. But there's a lot of those antique dishes that we. And of course, I told Lee, I said, I should really give them to the kids, but he said, well, they can have them when we go.
Oh, I'm in the glass. The green bowls and stuff, were those something that your mom used like often, or were they just special occasions?
They mostly wound up in the china closet.
Okay.
That's the way Ma was. I mean, oh boy, I tell you, she took care of stuff like that.
So was that something that the kids had to stay away from when you were growing up?
That, you know, the other hutch out there, the candy were always in there, and she had a key. She could lock it, you know. So we looked a lot into that machine.
Into that china closet. Here, I've got a lot of, and some of them are antique too.
Beautiful.
Okay, because there's some antique ones in there too that belong to Leah's mother. And I have picked up some in auction sales through the years too to add.
Well, I remember that pepper and salt shaker.
Oh yeah, those green. I don't know if they were see them or not.
And that was the same type of thing though, more in the china cabinet than out for daily use?
Well, actually, Grandma had something in that, some kind of garden seed or something.
Yes,
in
yes, yes. I
and
think it
one
was
of those
cucumber seed, maybe.
Cucumber seed or something that she probably had made herself, in the fall, and had it in one of those green containers with the cover on.
Yeah, that green stuff isn't popular anymore, is it?
Well, they don't make it, I don't
Don't
think
make it
anymore.
anymore, I don't think, no.
I don't think so. Well,
Let's start with this one here.
okay.
And we'll go back, middle,
Okay.
and front.
Okay. Cecilia?
Okay, Cecilia, is it?
Cecili.
Okay,
Heil.
H.
She's my sister.
Okay, how do you spell her last name?
Heil.
Okay,
And then this is Anton Kunz, my brother.
okay,
And then we want to go here. Ray, that's Ray.
okay.
And now you want to come back again.
Go
Oh, that's Eva.
Eva?
Eva Wiley. Wylie.
Okay.
And then it's me. And then it's Teresa Wagner.
I don't know how to spell that one.
You see that name? Yeah.
Is it Teresa with an H?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's my mom, Mary, and Julius. 50th wedding.
What year was that in?
What year was that?
Huh?
What year was the folks' 50th?
Oh, gosh.
They were married in 1925?
When,
1975.
Yep,
Yeah.
I suppose that's what it was.
I was just going to say, when was Brenda stepped on that time?
Okay.
She had a good time.
And then let's do this one next
Yeah,
here.
okay. Okay,
And we'll just start right with him back here.
okay,
And go there, and then we'll start third row, and then.
okay. Marvin Heil. Heil.
Okay.
And then Ray Kunz. And then Leo. And then the other one. Leonard Wangler.
Okay.
Anton Kunz.
What was that?
That's his wife, Jane. Yes, Cecilia Heil.
Okay.
Lois Kunz.
L-O-U-S.
L-O-I-S.
L-O. Okay. You said Coons?
Kunz, yeah, she's Ray's wife. And it's me. And then Teresa Wangler.
Okay.
Jim Wiley.
Is it Jim or James?
James.
Okay.
And then Eva.
Okay.
And Mary and Julius.
And that's the 50th too, right?
Yep. So we took them at the 50th wedding anniversary. And then, of course, this was their 50th. And it's just two of them. And then here's Leo's family.
Okay. So in the back. Kenny.
Okay, Kenny.
And then I'm guessing Leo.
Yes, him. And then that was Phyllis, his mom. And that was Dolores, his sister. And then Jim, our James.
So did you name your daughter after?
Yes, our first daughter that we had, we named her after Dolores. So that was just something that we decided we were. I don't know if we even discussed it. Leo's mother got this set of dishes because she bought a lot of medicine at the drugstore, and every time she got some medicine, she could get a piece of dishes, you know. So she's got this whole set of 8, everything. There was one luncheon plate that was missing, and I got it. I got one through the internet, so that's the only. Then some of these are her dishes, and then this middle dish my mother gave me. And then some of the other stuff is that we've gotten through the years. And then this is one dish that my mother gave me. This one with the orange rose. And then the rest of it was a lot of stuff that was filled in. But the china cabinet belonged to Leo's mother. And and we just had it redone a couple of years ago. So it was real dark, and you know, so it needed it. So it looks so nice now.
Yeah, if it would have cost that much, if Ma would have had it redone, they'd have burned the damn thing.
I think so. I think so. And the rest of them, no, actually, that was his mother's. The first one. And then the other ones I think I've gotten through the years.
That kerosene lamp up there was, when we moved out there in that Barton country in 1935, it was laying in the attic, so that's got to have some years on it.
Some years to it, too. So, no, that's...
Whether that don't make much difference anyway, what you're taking pictures of, right?
So anyway, but we're happy with all of our stuff here. But he was one of my favorite uncles because he'd stop there and he farmed up in this area. With his brother lived up in this area, and then he farmed up here, and he always had headaches. You know, as a young, he always, I don't know if it was migraine or not, and then he died in 45. He was born in 11, so he was like 35.
Do you know what he died from?
They really don't know, but he ended up in a hospital, and in those days they weren't that familiar. They thought that he had encephalitis then, but whether he did or didn't, I don't know.
Okay. Well, you were, what, 10 when he died?
Yeah, but I remember it so plain. They had the wake at my Uncle Sebastian, and it was in the winter time. And then, you know, they brought the body out from, you know, the undertaker brought it out. And then, of course, his parents, Grandma and Grandpa Kuntz. And when they brought him in, oh, my God, I will never forget that as long as I live. Because they took it so hard, you know, because they lost their son, you know, so young. So, like I said, I just will never forget that. As long as I live, I'll never forget it, because we were all there waiting. And it was storming, and so then the undertaker was kind of late getting it, you know.
So when he died, did they have the service here at this church here?
Yeah, because he was a member of this church here because he had farmed some land up in this area.
Okay. Well, what time of year did he die? Was it
February?
In February. So was the ground frozen at that time?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They dug the grave and they buried him. Oh, yeah. They did that in those days. So.
But he never married or had any kids?
No, he had never married. But he used to always, you know, because we lived like, maybe about 5 miles from here. Kitty Corner, that's where our home place was. So whenever he'd go home to his folks, he'd always stop at our place, you know.
So when you were growing up, did you attend this church then?
No.
Okay.
We didn't. We went, but we come up here a lot. That's where my Grandma Hammond lived. My Grandpa Hammond lived.
Really?
Yes, where those trees are.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so they were so close to the church. So, I mean, we were only like 5 miles from here. So we used to, as long as Grandpa lived on the farm here, we'd come up to go to church here, and then we'd go to Grandpa's. So we'd spend all afternoon there. So.
You mentioned that Michael was your favorite uncle, or one of your favorite uncles.
Yeah, he was.
Why? Like, what would he do?
Because he stopped there more than the rest of them. And the rest of them were married, you know, and so they had their own families where he didn't. And he used to, like my mother always said, if she was in the barn milking, when he'd stop, he'd grab a milk pail and help her milk, you know. So,
was he good with the kids?
Yeah, I mean, we enjoyed him. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And then who's buried up here that we're going to go up here and...
Yep, that's where my grandma and grandpa.
Oh, okay.
That's my grandparents with their pictures on them.
Okay. And these are your
My mother's.
mother's parents? Okay.
Yep, that's my mother's. Look at those pictures. That was, he was buried in, when did he die? March? Yeah, March 12th, yeah, 2 days after my birthday in 1942.
They both died in 1940, or no, 1942, 1924. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they died 20 years apart.
Yeah.
So you never knew your grandmother?
No, I never knew her. My mother was only 19 when she passed away. And then, of course, he had remarried, but he was buried beside
His first wife?
Yep.
Do you know how your grandmother died?
Yeah, childbirth. She
Okay.
had a little baby, and the baby died with her. And they buried the baby with her. They named it Eva, too. So.
And your grandfather, how did he die?
He had cancer. He had cancer right in the face here, right by his nose.
Really?
And it just kept on going and going. So. He was like 56, I think, when he died.
Let's see.
Or 42, 84.
Just less than 60, 58?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I know he was in his 50s yet when he died.
So how many children did Michael and Eva have?
Oh, God, they must have had 10 kids. And then he had 2 kids with his second wife, too.
Oh, okay.
So,
and is his second wife buried in the cemetery?
No, because she had been remarried, too, so she was buried. I don't know if she was buried with her first husband or not. I think she was.
Okay. Did she have kids from her first marriage?
Yeah, she had kids from her first marriage.
Oh, my goodness. So it was a big
so
family.
That was a big family, yes, that's for sure.
So your grandpa Michael, did you get to know him?
Oh, yeah, Grandpa, yeah, oh, yes. You know, like I said, we'd come up here Sundays after church, and then we'd have dinner, and then we'd, just visit, and all the cousins. There was always some of the other cousins were there, too. The uncles and aunts stopped over there, which, I was surprised because my mother never liked her stepmother, but yet we went to see him, but maybe she wanted to go to see her dad and probably be with some of her family, or I don't know why, but we always, like I said, we used to, I bet you every other Sunday when we'd come up here, so.
Did, were you close to him? Did he?
Oh, yeah, we always, and I know we had pictures, and I don't know who has that picture, if it's even around anymore, but I had my hand on he was sitting in a chair, and I was standing next to him.
So was Michael a farmer?
Yep,
Okay.
He was a farmer, too, yeah.
And he came over from Russia?
Yeah, he came over, I think, Kensel, or was that Grandpa Kunz? No, I'm not even sure. I wrote one of them down in Kensel, and it was around the Ukraine, in that area.
Did he have any kids when he came over,
No,
or was he?
No, not that I'm aware of. I think they got married probably over here.
Okay.
I kind of think so.
Okay.
Because he's got a bunch of brothers, they were, at one time, Towner was all Hammond.
Yeah.
They had all the businesses in Towner, because his brothers, they were quite well off, his brothers, but so they used to have, oh man, every building, every store was Hammond related.
Did you ever stay the night at their place, or?
Oh yeah, and once in a while, not very often, because we only lived like 5 miles away, so.
What was it like when you would stay the night at your grandpa's?
Well, there were Pauline, that's from his second wife, she wasn't that terribly much older. In fact, she was younger than Leo. And so I'll never forget it, because I used to go with her, too. And they had an ice cellar. They had, where they, in the wintertime, they would go to the river, and they'd cut blocks of ice, and they'd put them into those little ice houses on the outside. So that was neat when we went to Grandpa's place, because that's where they kept their milk and the cream and all that. So I always went with Pauline to get the milk and stuff. And then I'd go with her to pick the eggs, and there was one hen that would sit on her shoulder when she picked the eggs. And I wasn't very old. I was 5, 6 years old at that time. So.
Leo's grandparents are out here?
That's where Leo's grandparents are buried, and then this here was Leo's uncle, his mother's brother, and he died in the flu. He had a sister. Him and his son, Sylvester. He put the electric heat into this church here, because he had money up the wazoo. His son did now, but His dad died in 1918 in the flu, and so did his sister Barbara. So they were brother and sisters, both died in 1918. And then she had gotten, I think we married, yeah, then she married, anyway, John Tuxer, Leo's uncle, lost his wife. And Anton she lost her husband. Then he married his wife. I mean, there were two brothers.
Okay.
And then the one husband died and the one wife died. So then
the widowed
sister-in-law married the brother.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is Leo's uncle too.
So how? This was before then. Leo was.
Oh yeah. He never knew. Sylvester, we rented land from him, so we knew him real well. He just died here a couple of years ago.
Did there used to be a picture in that headstone?
There might have been, but that's if it was, it's broke. See, he died in 1885, and then she didn't die till 48. His mother, you know.
Okay.
But then Barbara was married to a Berkelsman, and she died.
There's a lot of iron crosses out in the cemetery.
I used to just love to walk here, but so many of them don't have names on it no more. No, those are Leo's grandparents.
Okay. One died in this is in German.
Yeah, she died so young, and then he got remarried again right away. She died. We just had looked it up in the family book last night, or the night before.
Do you know what it says on the stone?
What it says?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Oh, Philip. Katrina Tuxer. Good.
What's her maiden name, Voller?
The Geburt Voller. On Geburt, rest in peace. On Geburt, that died. This means born, and this means died.
Okay.
In German.
Born in 1860, died in 1916. Right?
1916.
Okay. And then the Dominicus is her husband.
And he was born in 1860, and he died in 1930.
Okay.
Yeah, she said, geboren and... I used to be able to, I used to be able to speak a lot of German and remember, but I don't anymore, but we don't use it as much no more. So.
Yeah. So he was only 5 when his grandpa died, right? Because he was Leo, or 2.
2.
2.
See, they lived in Chicago, and then and he died in I don't know what month he died, but anyway, they must have split the land up after, and then his mother inherited 2 quarters and an 80, so they left Chicago and come back to North Dakota.
Okay, so he was out here farming when he died.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And then Leo's father was back in Chicago, so when he died...
Then Leo's mother and his mother inherited 2 quarters.
Okay.
So then they moved back here and...
Okay.
So.
Any other places around here?
Not that I bet you I know 3/4 of the people here because Helen Madden, she was my aunt's mother, and we always called her Großmutter. We, always that was show respect. We'd call her Großmutter. That means grandmother.
Oh, okay.
So, but I mean, when you were young, we always had to do stuff like that.
So, what did you call your parents when you were growing up? Did you call them Pa and Ma? Mm-hmm. And your grandparents were
Großvater and Großmutter.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's what we called them. Yeah.
Well,
Großvater and Großmutter. Yeah.
When you were 18, you picked up the nickname Maggie.
Yeah.
Did your brothers and sisters get nicknames at all when they were?
Well, my sister, Cecilia, she worked at the Johnson Clinic at Rigby, and they called her Cecil. No, I don't know why Cecil. Or Cease. Some of them call her Cease,
Okay.
And Leo calls Teresa Terry.
Okay. Does Leo have a nickname?
No. Well, yes, they always called him Sonny.
Sonny? Hey, Sonny.
It rhymes with honey, you know.
Sonny and honey.
The song Sonny Boy came out when I was a baby.
Okay.
That's how I became Sonny.
I've never heard the song Sonny Boy.
Oh, yeah, Ma used to sing it, yeah.
Oh, Sonny Boy. Yeah, I remember it too. I don't know the words, but I remember hearing it. You know, so.
Another thing she used to sing in the springtime in the Rockies. She had gone out west when she was young. That's where Dad followed her out there, or she followed him out there. I don't know which it was.
But and then Then he went to Chicago, and she followed him down there. So.
See, the truth of it was that Dad wasn't good enough for Ma. You know, Grandpa took, and that's why she chased after him and married him down there, then in Chicago. It was Uncle wasn't good enough for Aunt Margaret. Steal her out from upstairs.
So they got married in Chicago. Is that what?
Yeah, Leo's
Oh.
26.
So then they didn't have much, or
Definitely not. There
There
wasn't even a wedding picture.
really?
No, yeah, well, they were hard up, I'm sure. Maybe Romanick was down there. Was he down there?
Yeah, he was down in like George
Volk's.
Lindemann.
Oh, Lindemann.
No,
Weren't
wait a
it
minute.
George Volk's?
No, George Volk was his last name.
Yeah.
Volk,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Lena Wooler, you know.
Yeah. So they lived down there. So maybe they stood up for him. Who knows? Because
Yeah.
we never asked him about that, I guess.
See, my godfather was Frank Gertie. I can't remember who my godmother was. I got a dime from her one time. I thought that was a fortune.
Yeah.
So since you were 2 when your grandpa here died, you didn't never really not to know him, did you?
I never knew
Yeah,
him.
that was the one that you never
He
knew.
said they come up in 31, he thought maybe.
Yeah, we came up in 31.
Okay.
I don't remember, and I remember when I was 3, and I don't remember when we came up here. But Ma said one time I was missing, and she went out behind the trees, and we lived about a mile from the railroad tracks, and I was going choo-choo, choo-choo, so I still remembered the trip
Coming
up,
on the
you know,
train,
that train,
I
you know.
suppose.
I suppose I want to get on the tracks again.
You enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, she said one time when you lived in Chicago too, that you were following this one vendor.
This Polak, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He was selling gurigi, sagurigi, and that's cucumbers, I guess, in Polish, and I was rattling it off, I guess.
So when you came back in 31, it was because he died and your parents were inheriting land?
Well, that's what I say. But Dad was. I think Dad would have died if he had stayed in painting those Model A's and T's.
Wasn't really enjoying working?
No, it's letting the paint or something. They said Dad was just
Gray.
His face.
Really?
He got sick
complexion,
from
yeah.
that. It was either allergic to it or it was too close quarters, I suppose.
Well, or inhaling too much of it.
Oh. So do you remember when your dad got his first car, or did he already have one when you?
Oh yeah,
When you were a kid.
I don't remember when he. I remember those 228 Chevys he had. The one where we were sitting in the car when it was storming. That was a 28 Chevy Coupe, and that one, of course, I was junk after that night when they took the rear end down. And it was on what would have been Monday we'd have left, but Sunday I got the telephone call that Dolores had died. So then on the Sunday, Dad had to get money together here in town, and several things had to be done on the Sunday, which is almost damn near impossible. But by dark that night, I was on my way home. Like I said, that was the longest day of my life.
How long were you able to stay home for?
Oh, I stayed AWOL about 10 days. I turned myself in. They gave me an order. It says affirmative orders will follow. Well, they never followed, so I turned myself in right away up after I'd been home about 4 days to the veterans officer. He said, well, hell, wait for a while. I said, they'll send them orders. But this black outfit that they had attached us to, they ran an army like my dog would run it, if you know what I mean. And so the state's attorney said, go home, he says, and you'll get your orders. about 10 days later, I went in. Are you still here? Yes, sir. He said, I'll call the general from the National Guard at Bismarck, you know. He called him and he said, tell that soldier to get his ass back to Fort Eustis, Virginia. Well, the next day I was on the train going back to Virginia. When I got back there, it took 2 days to get down there. When I got back, I was the most lost person in this world. Because the ship took off the next day with my buddies on there, you know. And then I told him I want to go up to BW-8 Sonderstrom, Greenland. And well, this guy said, he was a lieutenant, he headed this little bit of a detachment that threw me into then. And we'll try. And a couple of weeks later here, on a Saturday, said, your orders are cut. And I got them. Yeah, they cut me for Frobisher, Labrador. I said, geez, great, Lieutenant. I want to go to Greenland. Well, I said, that's what you're going to have to do. No, he said, I'll tell you what, in the morning, Captain Ledbetter, he was the captain of the battalion. He'll be over in building such and such a number. You go talk to him. I went over that next morning. And all he did was pass the buck. He says, when you get on the ship, just tell him where you're going. And, well, that's what I did. When I got up to, we landed at Argentia Naval Base with the ship, and then we went over to Pepperell Air Base up at Newfoundland, and flew up to Goose Bay. At Goose Bay, just from there I was going to this Frobisher. But Leo had other ideas. So I went in, and then this signal company that they had attached me to back here in the United States, they had a small detachment up there. It was a warrant officer in charge. And I went and I said to him, went in there, I said, I was missent. I belong over at BW-8 or at Sonderstrom. And he had a corporal there, CQ, and he said, Corporal, make some orders for this guy here. Sign some, get some orders ready. He signed it. Midnight, I was on my way over to Greenland. That fall, one guy said to me in the CQ, he says, Leo, they've been carrying you AWOL all summer over at Frobisher. I said, I know. You know, when I got out, I was overseas all the time. In between and here at home and here, I never lost a day of being back in the United States. That's how poorly this outfit run their company. Down in Panama, in our old outfit, 370th, I wouldn't have got away with 15 minutes. But I could have gotten into trouble, too. Yeah, there she's been resting for 53 years. Doesn't seem possible. That knocked Ma and Dad back under hind ends for at least 10 years they lost of their life. You know?
Yeah. How did her son end up faring after it all?
He's a good man.
Yeah.
Got a nice wife. She was a Norwegian girl and a Lutheran, but we made a good Catholic out of it. I think.
So
I was just telling Maggie on the way back, I said we've got probably more Lutheran friends laying in their grave over at the other graveyard in town here than we have Catholic friends here.
Yeah.
We lived amongst them out there in that Barton country, you know. I've been pallbearer out there several times. Helped dig graves.
When did you start helping with digging graves? Were you?
We had these two kids, neighbor kids, got killed at a train crash right by Barton. And it was in the midwinter, you know. So a bunch of the Norwegians and I got together and we dug the holes. That was tough digging. Used to ice chisel. We put Jason Saudi down that hole. I've never seen a man can work as hard as that bugger. He worked his hind end off. He's still alive too, and he's in his 80s now.
So it was possible then to bury people in the winter back then?
They always did.
Really?
When we were kids, there was no such thing as a place like this up here. If you died, you were buried in the wintertime if they had to bring you in as hard as a rock.
Amazing.
And then they didn't put up a tent for you either, like they do nowadays. If they have inclement weather, where they put up a tent for you, which is nice, but they didn't do anything like that years ago.
What time of day would a funeral usually be at?
Well, the Catholics usually have it in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Mass, you know. Nowadays, every once in a while, you see where they're starting to bury them at 2 o'clock. Well, all the churches have gotten more one like the other.
So with a funeral, then you would have mass out at the site, or would you have a church service and then move out?
Church service, and then when everybody come out before they lowered the grave, they had a few prayers and stuff.
How long after somebody died did they usually have the funeral?
Oh, maybe 4 days was stretching it.
Okay.
I was to my grandpa's funeral up in Bow Island, Alberta. That happened in January. No, not January. The last week of December in 1954, and I think we buried him on the 2nd of January in 55. Then, and my Uncle Andrew and Cordelia, his wife, came up, and then I drove Dad's Buick, and we went up there, Dad and Mom, Uncle Andrew and his wife, and I drove.
So would they have like singing at the grave sites, or I mean, what would they do when you got to the cemetery?
When they used to have these old Germans singing these old songs, everybody busted out crying when they sang. Just beautiful. That's so damn sad.
Is that something that they did for your sister at her funeral? Did they sing up there, or that was too?
All in the church.
Okay.
It was tough enough for Mom and Dad. And Nick, her husband.
Mm-hmm.
When he saw me, he cried like a baby.
Huh.
Yeah, that's a long, long, long time ago. That's a lifetime. 2 lifetimes what she had.
Did your wife get to know your sister?
Huh?
Did your wife get to meet you?
She
died before you got married?
Long before I ever met her.
Really?
Well, I only knew Maggie for 6 months when I married her. Not even 6.
So it was a quick courting there.
Yeah, well, her mother, you should listen to Maggie's. My cousin was her best friend. And she used to say what Ma would say in German. Was sie stolz dazu gekommen? What happened? Why? Because she married me. I suppose she thought she was knocked up or something. And Maggie's too tough to have that happen to her. You know? She's worth her weight in gold, that girl. I don't know what I'd do without her, but you learn, I guess, to live without her.
Does she have other family out here that's buried out here?
Yeah,
or is it
dad
just
and mother?
Okay. And how did your folks die?
My mom died of, my dad passed away. He had cancer. And he died in July 3rd of 84. And then our first granddaughter was born on July 7th. So it was a happy time and a sad time because that was our first grandchild. And then my mother passed away in November of 98, but she was 94, and she had fell and broke her hip up on long term, and then she just got pneumonia and died after that.
So tell me a little bit about your dad. What type of a person was he?
He was a very, very gentle person. He didn't get angry very easy, but when he did, he stayed angry for quite a while. And my mother, was more quick-tempered, but she got over it, you know.
Okay.
So, but otherwise, outside of that, I was actually pretty close to my dad. I don't know, maybe I was just a nosy kid, but whenever they needed something, that they were looking for something, if it was a tool or whatever, Dad would say, ask Maggie. She'd know. And I'd go and find it. So, like I said, I don't know, maybe I was just one of those nosy little kids that always had everything in my hands that I wasn't supposed to have. But I'd always could be able to find it. So like I said, he was really, he thought the world of Leo.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. And after, he was retired and everything, but they needed help one time combining. And of course, when he farmed, they didn't have, those combines. And he was in heaven running a combine. Oh, my God, he couldn't wait. He'd be out there. They'd say, you don't have to come till 9. Well, he'd be there at least at 8, waiting to do. And he done all the plumbing work for our bathroom out there in that rented place. And
So what were your parents' reactions when you brought Leo home and since you were engaged before and...
Oh, man, they said, we don't have anything against this young man, but you are engaged, or we're engaged to this guy. And of course, my folks knew that guy's parents too. They kind of grew up in the same neighborhood. So, and maybe in those days, breaking an engagement was a big thing. So then, anyway, I told my mother, I went to see Father. He married us too. Oh, what night was Father? And I went to see him. Oh, what in the world was his name? Anyway, I asked, can we walk?
Yep, yep.
I said, I went to see Father, what am I? But anyway, Father Monsignor Close was the head priest, but he was just an assistant. And Father Close was more of a stern people, so I didn't want to go talk to him. So, I hope Leo remembers. I'm sure he does. Leo, what was the priest's name that married us?
Father Schill.
Father Schill. So anyway, I said I went to see Father Schill, and Father Schill said, well, he thought that was better to break an engagement than a marriage.
Got a point.
And then I told him Leo was older, so he thought, well, he was probably more established. So no, the folks were not too happy. And my dad never said anything. Dad never said a word. And my mother, she was kind of thought I was going to put her in her early grave. Well, needless to say, she lived a long time.
I don't think I had any problem with your relatives, really.
No, he hasn't, never. And I haven't either, really.
And they were real religious, and I wasn't. You know what I mean? And still,
they thought the world of him. Oh, yeah. I mean, my mother learned to, like she said, she didn't have anything against this young man. And the truth of the matter was, when I didn't even know Leo at the time when his sister passed away, but my mother and Dad, they went to the funeral. And my mother, she was when she came home from the funeral, she was telling me that this soldier, he took it so hard at this sister's funeral. That was Leo.
Oh.
So in a way, I mean, that was even long before well, not so terribly long, but in 53, then we got married in 56. But I remember her mentioning that, so.
So how long after you met Leo did you guys get engaged?
Well, about a month before we got married. Well, in those days, you didn't. Nowadays, when they get married, they have to plan 2 years ahead.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, well, like I said, I started going out with him in January, and officially, I didn't have my engagement even broke until March, and then...
My cousin had to send the ring back for her.
She was a good friend of mine, so anyway, and I knew everybody at the post office because I used to always go and pick up the mail when I worked for Charlie Hersey, so I didn't want to take this because they knew, that he had been sending letters to me and stuff. So I asked his cousin whether she would take this ring and mail it back. And then here, when she took this package back, then they asked her, do you want to insure it or anything? She said, yeah, she said $35. So we had a laugh on that for a long time. Oh, poor guy, he must have thought that ring wasn't worth much. So anyway, yeah, so then we got engaged, I suppose, in May or April probably, and then we got married in June. So,
How long after you met Leo did you break off the engagement with your other?
well, like I said, I went out with him, I think the 17th or the 19th of January, and then in March I broke off the engagement.
Okay.
But we were seeing each other anyway. I mean,
That's why yeah.
because he was down in New Rockford and Leah was here, so.
Well, it was love. It was meant to be.
I think so. I think it was meant to be.
See, anytime you two want to stop in there, you stop at our place. Don't be
Yes,
afraid to.
anytime you're up
Oh,
in this
thank
area.
you.
Oh,
Thank
yes,
you.
we'd enjoy it. This was the most
Thank
fun.
you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Well,
What was the most adventurous childhood experience you ever had?
Oh gosh, that's hard to say. Maybe the first fox I ever shot, huh?
Why was it an adventure?
Pardon?
Why was it an adventure?
If you shot foxes like I must have gotten 3 or 4 in my lifetime, you'd think it was an adventure too if you finally got one.
So was that out in the wintertime or?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. And then what was the scariest experience of your childhood?
Oh boy. Well, in 1941, sitting in that ditch with a storm like you never believed in March, and Dad walked for help, and that's pretty scary.
Okay. And the happiest childhood memory?
Well, the day I went like this at the at the Army base, and I suppose when I married her.
Oh.
I would say that too. That was probably my happy.
Your happiest moment?
And when I was just a little one, I mean, we had this school teacher that he stayed at our house. He boarded at our house, but anyway, I was his little girl, and he bought me little doll houses. Well, I couldn't have been over 4, I suppose. And he bought me little doll, 2 of them, mind you. I suppose I got them for 10 cents a piece, but still, that was a lot of money in those days. And they had furniture in there, and it had real cloth on them. So I think that was just so exciting. I mean, I was always with him, and I think that's how I learned to speak English, because I didn't remember going to school not knowing how to speak English, and so I must have learned it from Liebrecht Klebe. He roomed there, boarded, and he couldn't speak German. So I must have learned it. I bet you he taught me how to speak English.
So you had a little advantage starting school.
I think, oh yes, I did. Yeah, because I know, because I just mentioned that to my brother here about a couple of months ago or so when we had talked to him. I said, I don't remember going to school not knowing how to speak English. And he said, well, him and Eva, they were older than me, so I might have picked up a little bit from them too, but I still think that's where I learned it, was from that school teacher.
And how about your most adventurous?
Oh boy, I don't know if I've had anything really adventurous happening to me. I don't know, maybe my first job.
Your first job?
And my first job, you won't believe it, they must have thought I was stupider than a wooden Indian, because I wanted to work so bad when we moved to town, and I was like only 12 or 13. Well, I lied to the guy. I told him I was 16. I don't know if that would have made any difference or not at the time. But anyway, then I had to go and get a Social Security card. And then I thought, now what am I going to do when I go and have to get a Social Security card? And I'll tell them I'm only 12. I'll have to tell them the truth. But they never asked, so then I was home free. So maybe that was... And I washed dishes, and I peeled potatoes, and everything at this restaurant.
Were you happy with the job?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I got a few cents. I mean, that was more money than I'd ever had in my life at one time. So maybe I got $3 a week. I don't remember. It wasn't much.
Did you get to keep the money, or did it have to go back to your parents?
They never said I had to give it to them, but I gave it to them.
Okay.
Because I was living there. But they never ever said that I had to give it to them.
Just something that you felt you needed to do.
Yeah. I just felt I needed to do it.
You know, I think the greatest pleasure in life for us is really that we survived.
You know, that's true, because I've had cancer Leo's had 4 times. He's had different kinds of cancer.
Oh my goodness.
So, but I've had a mastectomy in 1985. So it's 22 years. It'll be 22 years in September.
Oh my goodness.
So, I mean, I guess, you know, because they said, you know, if you make it through 5 years, so you couldn't wait till you had your 5 years, and then after that, you just kind of, now I don't even think about it no more, but, he had, he had prostate cancer, he had cancer on the nose, and on his hand, and he's had to have it removed, and then we had a son, Gary, that had a cancer brain tumor,
Oh my goodness.
and they had only given him, 2% to make it to 5 years. And that's been 13 years or 14 years or something like that. He's got side effects, a lot of them.
Like his eye, the one eye won't focus with the other one anymore, you know.
It's like
but we can live with that. At least Jimmy was 5 years old when he got that.
Yeah.
And now he's 19.
19. I mean, he got to see his kids grow up. I mean, he gets a lot of migraine headaches and different things. But hey.
He raised his son. He saw his kids.
Yeah, and Mandy, that's his daughter, the one that's our great-grandson. So I guess he was very lucky too, you know. So I guess that's been...
Okay, and the last question of the day, and you both can answer it, is why did you want to participate in this project?
Well, we're not ashamed of being German Russians. Shall I say that?
That's right. I thought it would be kind of interesting, but I didn't even dream that it was going to be near this interesting.
But our Germans are a lot at fault is why we're not in Russia. That's because they wanted to be Germans, and they remain Germans. If they hired a Russian, he had to sleep in the barn, you know.
What do you think about when they moved over here into the United States? Do they still really want to be German in America?
Yes.
Are they...
We did that a lot, yet. But we're getting away from that.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you see, it used to be Norwegian and German. But then the kicker was that it was Lutheran or Catholic yet, you know.
But now that's...
And these kids had an awful time. I remember some of my cousins. Oh, my, what they went through till they got married.
Yeah, even my oldest
The abuse
sister,
after it was over, after a few years, once the kids came, well, then Grandma and Grandpa were proud of the family, if you know what I mean. But, oh boy.
But now it's pretty much becoming more Americanized. And
yeah, which is a good thing. I mean, that's ridiculous if we all believe in the same God in the world. And
well,
we all hope to go to heaven someday.
Yeah.
You've been in heaven for 50 years.
What's better than being married to him?
Yeah, right.
Well, thank you guys both so much.
Well,
it was really, really
for
fun.
taking, all this extra